I'd like to introduce Raphael Faeh. So Raph is the co-founder of Underknown, a Toronto-based social startup where he leads editorial, insights, and the social teams. Underknown's web series entertain and educate viewers across the globe about science, and its What If show is currently trending as the #1 science and tech show on social media globally, according to Tubular Labs. Raph is also an award-winning designer and creative technologist. He delivered creative strategy and digital storytelling for various startups, publishers, academic research projects, and global brands. Raph is obsessed with utilizing data to inform the creative process and is known for bringing storytelling ideas and concepts to life with the latest tools of the trade. Without further ado, I'd like to welcome Raph to take you through his story.
Thanks, Jason. Let me start by saying this. What we know about the universe, our existence in it, is because someone, sometime, somewhere asked, what if? So I'm obviously here to tell you a bit about our What If show. Jason just mentioned a few of the facts that 3 years ago, my friend Steve Holford and I, we started a side project. We were working for a software company. And basically, we had nothing, and now we're suddenly number one in our category. So I'm going to talk about how we got here so quickly. So a what-if video, when watching a what-if video, you learn something, a scientific theory, a scientific fact, by going on an imaginary journey, as each video asks, what if some of the most fundamental aspects of our lives were different? Let's see if this works. Yeah. So when working on our side project in 2016, we had a Facebook page. We tried some things. We called it Interesting Shit, which later became INSH because of obvious reasons. So everybody kind of went all in on video at the time. So we were kind of looking and observing how big publishers suddenly went all in on video, especially and most likely also influenced and incentivized by Facebook. So we were kind of trying our things, and we realized something's entirely new, is that when you upload a video, you get almost instant feedback, and you get audience retention data, you know who's watching, where they're from, how they feel about it. So this was exciting. That's something we knew from the software world. When you test a product, you look at the data, you get everything back. So we set out with the mission to start a video company that works kind of and iterates and scales like a software company. So that's what we did. But where do you start? Where do you what's your niche? Where do you go? And we looked at, we did quite an extensive research project, and we looked at the top 100 Facebook videos at the time. And we realized, apart from news and viral pet videos and maybe some celebrity culture, there wasn't much in the humanities and the sciences. There were some publishers that were doing great, like National Geographic, for example. So we really went to town and looked at these publishers, and kind of figured, okay, what's the format they're editing? What's the frequency they're posting? What are the themes? What's the video length? We tried to kind of find a way to understand what we should put out. So there were themes like hero stories, humans doing incredible things. There were a theme like how-to videos was obviously a thing too. And another theme we discovered was what if? But that was insight we gained, and then we went on, and our MVP at the time was, as I said, our Inch Facebook page. So we went on and tried to scale our Inch Facebook page, which covered the most interesting stories from science, history, geography, and culture. So we worked with influencers. They helped grow our channel. We worked with people like George Takei or Alyssa Milano. They love to share our videos. They wanted more because everybody was looking for engagement on their site. And we produced this snackable 1 to 2 minute videos that had text on screen, and everybody was doing those at the time. And it helped us kind of grow really fast, but ultimately a it kind of stalled and failed to grow further. And we figured maybe we were too broad. We cannot do everything. We cannot do science and history. And if somebody loves history, then they might not be interested in the science. So, and at that time, there was a big algo crunch on Facebook, and everything changed suddenly. And by doing our Inch Facebook page, we knew what works, what are the themes, so we understood a lot. We threw a lot to the wall, and what stuck is what we carried on. So we launched, we ultimately found our What If page. We started our What If page. We did other themes like crazy creatures. We had a page on your amazing body, how-to videos. But What If is really what stuck. And what's cool about it is that we grew it to 4 million followers in the first year. But you know, having a theme is not everything. You gotta kind of have a format and a plan. So how do you tell a story? How do you tell a what if video? So we refined the format. Every day we're looking at the data. We added a voiceover. We made them longer. We improved our storytelling so that people watch for more than 1 minute, because that's where Facebook decided to put an ad break. And how do you catch people's attention when they scroll through the feed? For example, on Facebook, it's a lot different than on YouTube. On YouTube, people discover your video by looking at the thumbnail, versus on Facebook, it just autoplays and appears in the feed, and you've got about 2 seconds in order to persuade them and catch their attention to stay on. And once you have their attention, you want to ask some big questions so that they stay on and ultimately watch for long. So watch time was really, really important on Facebook. That's all the things we kind of learned and started to understand by looking at the data. So we got better with every episode we put out. If we look back at our first ones, we're kind of ashamed, but that's the nature of the things, is that you don't have to come up with your format and that's it, and it's genius and it works, but it's kind of a step-by-step process, and you get better, you improve, you give the audience what they want, you know what works, what themes work, what stories work, and you give them more of what works. It's pretty simple. So, oh, sorry, I'm like, that was too far. How do I get back? Anyway, so I'm still talking about the format. One thing we thought when we started What If is that, we might run out of ideas after like 50 ideas. We did the obvious ones, like what happens if you dug a hole through the earth and jumped in, and what if the Yellowstone volcano erupted, and we kind of went everywhere. And we thought we might run out of ideas. What do we do? So a good thing with the Facebook show pages at the time is they had a group, and it still works like that, that you can attach a group to a Facebook page, and that's where our core fans hung out. So by now it has like 200K group members, which is crazy. And everybody's debating what if questions and topics and consequences, what would happen there? And they're so engaged there that it's one of the key tools where we get our ideas from. Everybody wants their what if idea produced, and they're so happy when we do them. We try to bring them in through videos they upload, and we add our CGI to it. So we can look at things in the group like what are the most discussed what if questions that they've asked, and that's a good insight for us to figure out, okay, that's maybe an episode we should produce. It's a good place for us to test ideas, to poll them. Should we do this? Should we do that? So they feel kind of part of the show, and it's amazing how engaging it is. So ultimately, we look at What If not as like a science broadcaster, like we're here and we teach you about black holes and we tell you how everything works. What If is kind of more your friend, and you're part of it. You can ask your questions. There's no dumb questions, and that's how we kind of take you on. So, and what it also helps is when you have data, is that you can branch out to other channels and verticals and languages. So by having the Facebook data, we can cherry pick our top ones that go on YouTube. And that's how we grew this year our YouTube channel to 3 million subscribers, by having the Facebook data at hand and knowing what works. We just put the top of the top up on YouTube, and it's grown really quickly. The same we do with languages. we know where they're from, so we know which kind of language verticals, which languages we have to translate them to. So that works really well. And the other thing we're working on is our content franchise. We're working on a podcast. We have a concept for a TV show. And everywhere you go, there's like the data scientists in there that look at which topics work and what topics you cover in a podcast, for example. And it's all informed by Facebook data. So what if it's a Facebook first format and show, and it proved itself to work on YouTube as well, and ultimately we'll take it further. So, and meanwhile, while this is going on, we're kind of back in the lab, trying to find our next what if. And yeah, and I think we're kind of achieved what I said in the beginning. You can run a content company a bit like a software company and iterate and be agile with your format and looking back and take small steps rather than thinking you have to come up with the crazy best idea ever and it's just because you're a genius, it's great. It is kind of an iteration and a journey, and Facebook really helps us with that. So yeah, thank you. If you have any questions, I think we have like 5 minutes Q&A.
Have you noticed that there's been copycats with your format? Like once you do it, then somebody imitates you, and then you have to become maybe a little more original with what you do?
Yeah, for sure. Like there's videos that everybody's done. Like, for example, the jumping into a whole episode. It's not like this is we own that what if question. It's more like, has the definite version of that topic been produced yet? Can you top what's there already? And if somebody's doing it, if they do it better, it's a reason for us to get better. And ultimately, you're always one step ahead if you're early. So it's a very good question that there's multiple videos on like, what if you jumped into a hole in the earth? But it's about, being on top when people search for it on YouTube, for example. But copycats in terms of like people ripping down your videos and re-uploading them. There's great tools similar to YouTube's Content ID on Facebook, which is a rights manager that helps you taking everything down in like tick boxes. And that ultimately will happen if you have a few million viewers. So, yeah.
Hi. When you were introduced, your colleague said that you like using data and making something creative out of it. I think there was something like that, right? So what kind of data do you use? Like it's a Facebook data or something else? And how do you transform it into the creative things?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I would say with all the platforms, especially Facebook and YouTube, like I personally like to edit videos myself as well, every now and then. And when you edit a video or retell a story, you take creative decisions. So which shot should I put here? What kind of do I say at like 50 seconds so that someone stays on when the ad break appears and then stays on during the ad break, so you're making that ad impression. And those are really like interesting things. So when you're, as a creative person, you're there and you're thinking, which shot is better? Should I put this one or that one? Should I put a wide shot? Should I put a close-up? Should I put a question? You can verify all your decisions by looking at an audience retention graph. So for us, it's like the 1 minute mark is like the key metric because ultimately that's where we monetize things. So before there, we just ask lots of questions, like 3 questions, and then there's a cliffhanger, there's an ad, but you get the answers after. And those creative decisions as to like how do you open a video, for example, what clip do you use that starts autoplaying in a feed that people might watch. It's like you get better over time by knowing, okay, if there's like a progressive disclosure, somebody is digging something in the earth and is putting some things out, what is it? Like there's these questions, clips that ask questions that work really well. So it's kind of looking at the data in terms of audience retention is really creatively what's really interesting in the video editing process. Does that make sense? Yeah.
So you produced a video. I'm curious as to. Oh, thank you. I'm curious as to what your release strategy is, your timing, and how maybe your data informs when and how you release a video.
That's another very good question. We don't really have a fixed static content calendar as such. We have episodes that come up. The good thing is we're not in the news business per se. So we can plan things ahead, and there's certain pillars in our content calendar, but we can react really fast if something's trending. Like when Donald Trump was suggesting to nuke a hurricane, this was an easy grab for us to know what happens if you nuke a hurricane. That's something we produced within a day and threw it up, and it just pushed our schedule back, but we don't have to, because it's kind of timeless content that works anytime, whatever happens. We're pretty free there. In terms of best time of day, that's kind of standard metrics you get in the Facebook backend, for example. You do get it with some YouTube plugins, browser plugins that understand what times work really well. We often find the times that are important to get the initial reach going, but having people watching for long is really the key to reach. And there's new metrics now. Just 2 weeks ago, it's been launched, a distribution metric that tells you exactly on Facebook what gave this video a certain reach. Was it engagement? Was it your 1 minute views? Was it minutes watched, etc.? So it's getting really better day by day of like the feedback you get back from once you put out a video. Yeah. All right, thank you very much.